What's the family tea that you found out once you got older? I'll go first.
So, I gotta step outside for this. I found out that my uncle was really my dad.
What's the family tea that you found out once you got older?
So I have cousins who think that they're cousins, but actually they're brother and sister and sister and sister. One of their moms abandoned the other one because she was on drugs. So her sister, who was having a hard time having children, picked the baby up and raised the baby as her own. So now they all think they're cousins, but in fact, they're actually brothers and sisters. Not only that, the mother who abandoned her child, she knew who the daddy was. She knew who the papa was. And that papa ended up with her sister. Not only that, but at least this is my theory. My theory is that she got rid of that baby and abandoned that baby because she knew who the daddy was. And she knew that the baby was going to be really, really dark. Because the daddy is really, really dark. And all her other kids are really, really light because she was messing with light and white.
What's the family tea that you found out once you got older?
Whew. I may need to do two parts for this. I found out that my cousin's father is not their biological father, that he adopted them when he married my aunt after she unalived her first husband. I think that's how you say it on TikTok. So my aunt and her first husband are married. Things seem normal, no major red flags. They have 2 children, an older boy who's about 5, 6, 7-ish maybe, and then a baby girl who is an infant when all this takes place. So again, pretty normal, no major red flags. And then he has a car accident that leaves him in a coma for a short period of time. But when he comes out of that coma, he's a completely different person, very violent, very aggressive, like for part 2. Okay, here we go. Part 2. Okay, husband number 1 comes out of the coma, very violent, very aggressive. He begins abusing abusing my aunt and his children. I've even heard the story that he had ripped all of the hair out of his son's head. I've heard that he had a list of people that he wanted to unalive, starting with my family, my aunt's family, his wife's family. And one day, my aunt comes home and finds him on the bed with her husband, and he is choking their son. So, my aunt, in order to defend her child, grabs a firearm and defends her child. Looks like I'm going to have to do a part 3. Gosh, I need more time. All right, here we go, part 3. So, after my aunt protects her son and unalives husband number 1, she is arrested, and they call my mom to come pick up the children. So she picks up her niece and nephew, makes sure that her nephew doesn't need any further medical attention due to any injuries that he sustained when all of this went down. And then my aunt is very quickly, she's released. It's obvious that what happened in self-defense. But yeah, had no idea. She is the quietest, just very put together. She's an oldest daughter, so she takes care of everything. And I was so shocked. I had no idea. All of this happened before I was born.
What's the family tea that you found out once you got older?
So mine is basically a deathbed confessional. I actually have a few of those in our family. They really like their secrets, right? And they go to the grave with them, except for a couple. So one is that my great-grandpa, he was the oldest of, I think it was eight brothers and sisters. And they're all Native American and Hispanic and Lithuanian mix. My great-grandpa was Native American and Hispanic. And then my great-grandma is Lithuanian and some other stuff, but she's mainly Lithuanian. They all spoke Lithuanian and English. And so they married and had a bunch of kids and everything. But there was never any pictures of my grandpa growing up. like with great grandma being pregnant or anything. Nothing. But there was of all the other brothers and sisters. Well, on my great grandma had passed away, my great grandpa on his deathbed, the truth finally came out about where my grandpa came from. So my grandpa is pasty white. His brothers and sisters are all dark skinned, and you know, they look like their parents, whereas my grandpa really didn't. And he was super tall too, whereas everybody else was really short. So it looked like he didn't belong. But so truth came out that my grandpa was actually adopted by the mom that he knew. His adoptive mom was actually his aunt. Her sister gave birth to my grandpa, but I guess it was out of wedlock. So since her sister was married already, they sent my grandpa to live with her and her husband, which is my great grandpa and great grandma Romo. So it was just, it's really weird. So we don't even know who his birth father is. That never came out. My great grandma, biological great grandma, she took that to her grave. So my grandpa only got to know his biological mom for a couple years, so they didn't really see her very much growing up. I guess they kept her distance from him just due to everything. I guess they didn't want the truth to come out. So it's really weird, but it makes sense why, you know, me, my mom, my brother, and my son, we don't look like any of the rest of the family. Everybody else is dark skinned and everything, and you know, brown eyes, and here we are, blue eyes and green eyes, and you know, pasty white. And everybody else, you know, is dark and beautiful, have the olive complexion, and we look like Casper. Yep, but I have more deathbed confessionals too, like for part 2. Okay, so my previous video about my family tea was about one of my grandpas. Well, my other grandpa on my dad's side this time, I found out that he is not my biological grandpa. This whole time I thought he was. I found out when I was like, I think 19, that actually he is my step-grandpa. My biological grandpa, I met him when I was in my 20s, early 20s. And then he died like 2 or 3 years ago. But so I didn't really get to know him very well. I only met him a couple of times. He was kind of a loner. He was really into drugs and stuff, and he looked like a he kind of looked like Willie Nelson, but more biker. If that makes any sense. So he had like the long gray hair, long gray beard, and mustache and whatnot and stuff, and all that jazz. But yeah, so along with that, I also found out that I had aunts and uncles that I didn't know I had, and lots of cousins and stuff. And we're still finding out every couple years. We find out we have another aunt out there or another cousin out there from him, because apparently he got around quite a bit. So kind of a man-ho, you know, a man whore. But yeah, so that's one of my family teas. Nobody dared to tell me until, you know, I was old. So I could have reached out to him this whole time, but no. And so my step grandpa, me and my brother are his only grandkids who are not biologically related to him, but we're the oldest. And he's our papa, and he'll always be our papa. But I hate it though, because I want to be biologically related to him, you know. So it sucks. But it is what it is. There are so many more secrets too that I can tell y'all. My family, I guess we just love secrets in this family. And it's really wild. I don't understand, but like for part 3, and I'll give you another one. This time will be another deathbed confessional.
Anyone else take an Ancestry DNA test and accidentally uncover a family secret?
Yes, I was contacted by somebody who was in search of her birth parents, and our genetic match was showing that we were first or second cousins. So I did some sleuthing and found out that when my cousin was 17 years old, he knocked up a teenage girl, and she was whisked away by her parents to give birth, and they forced her to give the baby up for adoption. And he was accused of being the father, but then told that he wasn't the father, that somebody else had got her pregnant because she was dating somebody new after he and her broke up. So I called him, he told me the story, and I said, guess what? It was your baby. And now they've been talking on the phone, which is pretty cool.
I'm sitting on a when your family secret is about you. So when my mother got pregnant with me, she already had my older brother who was 3 years older than me and by another man, and they were already split up. Well, she got pregnant with me. So she decided she didn't want me. So she told my dad that she had a miscarriage and left him, gave me to her sister who couldn't have children. So growing up, I thought my mother was my aunt and my aunt was my mom. Well, my mother, my biological mother, decided to have 4 more children and keep them. So one of our other crazy aunts told us the truth when I was about 16 years old, and we didn't believe her. So we started looking through pictures, and I realized that all the pictures of my mom, in the hospital holding me, she was sitting by the bed and there was somebody else in the bed. So we asked her grandmother and she told us the truth. And so it wasn't until I was 34 that I found my dad. And then I have a crappy relationship with my mother a whole life. Tried real hard. She wasn't having it.